geopolitics and geoeconomics today is as suspenseful as your favorite TV sitcom. Our indigenization of space, atomic energy, and defense technologies in the last few decades has a lot to do with Russian assistance. The US needs India to succeed. Hence, our relationship with the United States has a logic that is able to surmount temporary hiccups and differences. It is daunting for me to take this position after the presentations by Dr. Ram Madhavji and Ambassador Ruchira Kamboj. They were both tour de force, and I will be hard put to say something that will keep you as engaged as they kept you. I'm of course delighted to be here at Reasonomics, WMG Reasonomics, and to see such a large, enthusiastic audience, and that there is so much interest in foreign policy and what is happening in global affairs today among the corporates in Bangalore. Your interest, though, is understandable. Bangalore is a city that is perhaps more plugged into the rest of the world than any other Indian city. And geopolitics and geoeconomics today is as suspenseful as your favorite TV sitcom. Every day we tune into the news, eager to know the latest episode. And we go to bed full of suspense, wondering what the next day's episode will bring. But this is, of course, real, and it is serious business. And therefore, I do believe that in today's world, awareness of what is going on around us and to be able to decipher the trends is crucial, not only for government policy, but vital for businesses such as the ones you represent and which Ashwin alluded to a little while ago. When I did my MBA, which as you might have guessed was a very long time ago, international trade was about the only thing international that was taught in our course. And the word MNC was a very bad word. Today, the world of business is about geopolitics, geoeconomics, access to technology, critical minerals, supply chains, about demographics, labor mobility, and how societies are evolving around the world. Today, the market capitalization of the top 5 companies in the world is more than the GDPs of 4 of the top 10 countries. In my 35 years in the Indian Foreign Service, the world and India have changed unrecognizably. Today, I have been asked to speak on the subject of India, Russia, United States relations in the emerging world order. Or perhaps it should be the emerging world disorder. I grew up in a world, as Ambassador Kamboj has said, dominated by essentially 2 superpowers. It was a very predictable world. India was nominally non-aligned, but generally seen as Soviet-aligned, and not without reason. Our experience with taking Kashmir to the United Nations during our birth pangs resulted in a situation which caused considerable distrust of the West. Western fondness for dictatorships and military regimes in our neighborhood exacerbated this. Our experience during the birth of Bangladesh all made us deeply skeptical of the West, led by the United States. On the other hand, the USSR did not meddle in our neighborhood to our detriment, was forthcoming in sharing with us equipment and technology for our defense needs, as well as high technology in civilian areas, and could be counted upon for support in the United Nations. The fall of the Soviet Union and our own economic liberalization coincided and resulted in an opening up to the West, especially the United States, but also to the United Kingdom, to France, to Germany and Japan. Along with economic relations, political relations also became much closer. The world really took notice of the growing closeness between the United States and India when, with very strong US lobbying on our behalf, we obtained a waiver from the Nuclear Suppliers Group for our nuclear program. This is unprecedented, and you could say it is an example of Indian exceptionalism. No country outside the NPT regime has ever had such a dispensation. In one stroke, India was recognized as a de facto nuclear power and also given access to civilian nuclear technologies from elsewhere. And since then, our relationship with the United States has grown by leaps and bounds in trade, technology, defense supplies, energy, etc. But at the same time, the Russian relationships continues to be of crucial relevance for us. Despite the NSG waiver, not a single nuclear power plant from any Western nation, either the United States or France, has materialized. Western contribution to our space program has to date been negligible, although things may be changing. On the other hand, Russian contribution grew from strength to strength. Our indigenization of space, atomic energy, and defense technologies in the last few decades has a lot to do with Russian assistance. Over 60% of our defense platforms and equipment are still of Russian origin. Whether it is the BrahMos or the S-400, Russian technology and joint venture cooperation in such technology was key to our response in the recent four-day war. Hence, when Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, and the West joined together to impose crippling sanctions on Russia, it was a defining moment for India for various reasons. A, there was a real possibility that Russia would be defeated or weakened to such an extent that one pole of this multipolar world that we were about to see would fall. B, this would adversely affect us in various ways in our nuclear program as well as in our defense preparedness. C, such a scenario would have profound implications for our own strategic choices and our strategic autonomy. So while we said that this is not an age or not an era for war and promoted a diplomatic solution, we refused to take sides or to condemn Russia outright. The Ukraine conflict had the potential to upend our growth, coming so soon after the limping recovery from the COVID pandemic. European countries had cornered much of the natural gas from the Gulf at exorbitant rates for their own use in order to wean away from Russian gas. Oil prices were also rising. Russian gas and oil and their availability to us at rates far lower than the price cap placed by the West were critical to containing inflation all through 2022 till the present. To be fair, after initial expressions of outrage at our purchase of Russian energy, the West came around grudgingly to understand our point of view. I have given you some illustrations of why, for the objective of strategic autonomy, our relations with Russia will continue to be important. On the other hand, the United States has been the uncontested hyperpower for over 30 years. Fortunately, our relations during this time have improved unimaginably in every field. Today, it is the supplier of key defense platforms and prospective sources of high technology, including for the state-of-the-art fighter engines. The US will, for the foreseeable future, continue to be perhaps the most important pole in the world, and our relations with it will be defining for India as well as for the world. The power of its technology companies, its research institutions and universities, its leadership in the digital world, and the power of its popular culture in music and movies all over the world is unmatched. And I think Bangalore is the last place where I need to convince people of the importance of the United States for us. But I now turn to the elephant in the room, or rather, shall we say, enter the dragon. China is not India's natural adversary. We do not threaten China, either in economic competition, military ambition, or regional influence. Our trade with China is substantial. In fact, we run the largest trade deficit with China, and despite everything, it is growing. And yet, how unnatural the relationship is at the moment, you will be able to gauge from the simple fact that the two largest nations on earth, side by side, neighbors to each other, sitting in the most economically dynamic region of the world, do not have a single direct flight connection between India and mainland China. Somewhere, trust has been broken, and it will be a long time to rebuild that trust. Hence, for us, the other poles in the world become that much more important. On the other hand, for the United States, China is the only nation able to challenge US supremacy in the world stage. It realizes this, and much of its focus is now on how to maintain US leadership. For that, India is one of the key focus countries. The US needs India to succeed. Hence, our relationship with the United States has a logic that is able to surmount temporary hiccups and differences. As regards the US-Russia relationship, the Ukraine war certainly adversely impacted what could have been a growing accommodation of Russia by the United States, and by extension, Europe. Despite crippling sanctions and at terrible cost of manpower, Russia appears determined as ever to see this through. The current US administration has made it amply clear that it sees China as the primary object of its attention, and the Russia-Ukraine war is at best a distraction which needs to be ended quickly. Russia, on its part, sees herself as a great power and has its own sense of itself with the right to respond when its core interests are threatened. Russia is a state of continental dimensions with enormous natural resources, as well as a high sense of its position on the global stage. The political philosopher currently influential in Moscow, Professor Alexander Dugin, coins the term civilizational state to describe countries like Russia, China, and India. These are states which not only have old, distinct civilizations, but which have had and continue to have civilizational influences over their neighborhoods. Russia will not accept encroachment on its neighborhood, be it to its west or to its east in Central Asia. Russia cannot and will not play a second fiddle to any power, including China, except tactically. India has always called for engagement of Russia by the West and to address Russia's concerns. There are many in Europe who also hold this view, and it appears that the present US administration is not averse to doing so. Therefore, like it or not, China is a factor in the strategic calculations of all three, India, the United States, and Russia, and will become increasingly important a factor going forward in how the relationship among the three develop. To conclude, in the India-Russia-US relationship, no doubt India's relations with both US and Russia are strong. What is missing is a strong US-Russia relationship, which will be important for all three. I thank you for your attention.